Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to another exciting episode of Psychology Talks. And today we're going to discuss about empathy because empathy is something which is it was used to be considered a harder skill, but actually it is more than a harder skill. It is the ability to understand others' emotion without having to say anything about it. And it is one of the most desired skill for the leaders, because if the person or if the leader doesn't know what his or her team wants, he won't be able to lead the team successfully. So it is one of the highly desirable skill, but sadly not lot of leaders actually, or not lot of corporate sector doesn't actually practice empathy these days. But today's world is changing, and there are lots of other thought leaders who are actually advocating the importance of empathy, so people can practice empathy in not only in personal life but also at the corporate level. And that's why today's guest is Paul L Gunn Jr., and he is a thought leader and a change maker. He is the CEO of KUOG Corporation, and he's also a best-selling author of the book "Succeed the Way," which is the best-selling of like Wall Street Journal best-selling book. He's also an expert in the field of logistic and supply chain. He is on the mission to shift this paradigm of business culture and replace the cutthroat corporate culture with kindness, compassion, and empathy. His own companies make it to the list of fastest growing companies by Inc. magazine. And his simple formula of success is not just traditional like dog eat dog formula. Instead, he places value to empathy, and that's what make him an extraordinarily successful person and a humble human being. So let's welcome Paul.
All
Hello,
right,
Paul.
thank
Thank you so
you,
much
and
for joining us today. It's an honor to have you with us.
thanks for welcoming me. It means a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know it's Sunday and it's a weekend for you, so thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining. Uh, just a second. Let me see if we are all online. Yeah. So, so I given the very brief introduction about you to the audience, but before we move on to the discussion, let's tell our audience about your journey, that how you get into um, this field and why you are so much passionate about preaching empathy.
Well, this field came to me overseas in 2001, and when he came back, I was working in a company providing parts that eventually went into a popular game system. Former DCA auditor and suggested that him and I hook up. So it was new to us, but the basic framework of me wanting to get in this was when he was over there, always being concerned, have what he needs, is he getting the parts so he could ultimately return home safely. And when I was presented this opportunity and source and be that kind of vessel and ensuring safely by providing them the parts, I jumped at it and used that passion to kind of make a staple in that lane.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so why you're so much like passionate about empathy? I mean, like I know like a lot of people do talk about it, but the thing is, especially at the business, at the corporate level, it is not something that is considered a skill which is highly desirable. But I know like you talk a lot about empathy. So why this particular skill means a lot to you?
To me, because we all come from different walks of life, and many people come from different backgrounds. And when you simply stop to have conversations with them, the word location, to have that place in that conversation, but so much can be learned, a different perspective, a different angle. Their backgrounds may present some opportunity that wasn't necessarily there. And if you don't have that ability to listen to the things that they're not saying, losing so much value that can company or give you the corporate edge. But at the baseline of it, you're connecting with level and furthering them while you're furthering yourself. And hear those perspectives just runs deep as a passion for me because from experiences that are worthy to be shared and heard.
Yeah, that's very true. Actually, you highlighted a very good point here. That it's like understanding others' perspective is actually very important, because when we are looking, or when we are having a conversation and we're not able to understand others' perspective, it's most likely that we end up having a bias or a judgment. So
Yes,
that may lead us to have or to make a wrong decision. But when we actually expand our mental horizon and try to understand the other's perspective, we find out some, like, the two sides of the story, not only from our side. So that definitely gives us an edge uh, to make a right direction or to make a right decision. So tell us a little bit about how one can develop empathy, or do you think is it an inborn skill?
so I think it's a bit of both. I do think you have the more empathetic. I think by some of the numbers, when I read and study on percent of the population is deemed or are deemed true empaths. About 20 have empathetic capabilities, and then the rest, if they see it, and they mirror the rest of the corporation, and those follow, then those have the ability to implement it. So I do think there's a mirror of who's corporate, who has the overlap of empathetic qualities that they can later implement it by just simply watching. But I think the innate, I try and tell other people about, if you were dealing with a young kid or child who was a demographic, social class or something, and you were trying to explain something, you want to kind of sense and feel how they're receiving what you're telling versus just trying to come on a heart level with them. But if you talk over them, at them, or through them, they're going to have a different. And that's the simplest way, I would say, if many people could start to have a foundation to go further on to develop more of a relationship, implement it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best thing is, like, through empathy, people develop trust, and as you said, like rightly mentioned, that it's a kind of a both, because it's a sort of an
Yeah.
innate ability as well, but it
Yep.
can be uh, attained, or it can be learned as well. But the thing is, the more we practice, the more we learn.
Yes.
And it is sometimes one thing that we need to do is, before making any decision, or before saying anything, or whenever we are in any conversation or communication, try to hold our own judgment and think from the other's perspective
Yes.
before making any decision. And the more we actually practice, the more we will get used to it and used to practice this. And one thing that I've seen over the period of time, that people actually judge or make the decision even before the person starts speaking.
Yep.
And that is something that actually they
Yep.
need to hold themselves, or stop themselves from doing that intentionally. Otherwise, they will not be able to learn empathy. So now moving
So
on to the further
that
discussion. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was saying those experience when they do it and they it quickly, especially proper body language usually tells them that they're making that assessment. So when I see that, then I see an opportunity opportunity to win somebody over by showing this because their visible or bias has shown. And that's when I kind of stick in and try, for the lack of them over, to see that their bias was initially wrong. The ones that are more difficult are the overtly hold that together, but some of them are so biased that is just for appearance. You have the ability to win them over if you can maintain a calm.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think this is the brilliant point you just pointed out here, that the body language tells a lot, and that gives us
Yeah.
the cue to understand what the other person is trying to say. Because many times I've seen people are actually say something, but their body language tells completely something different, and that is the time, or that is the opportunity for us to understand that what the person is trying to say. So I'm like looking at, like, a lot of the audience have already joined and they're saying hi. So thanks to all the audience that who have joined from across the world. And please feel free to have any, if you have any question, please feel free to ask, and we'll be happy to answer right away. So yeah, moving on to the further discussion, your expertise in supply chain. So, and this seems quite a technical field. So,
Right.
how does it actually help you? How does like the practicing empathy helps you in your profession?
So, trust is a big factor. You have to be able to say, hey, if I place this order, get it here on time. So essentially, I'm going out, our company's going out, and then building relationships and supplying it down the line, making sure that connect feel, do they understand? There's a whole level of communication, and the whole line is broken because of trust. Then you have people on the back end having and own the mistake. So ultimately, the buck will stop with me in that sense. I mistake, I was over it. Let me take ownership on it. But at the same time, you're trying to build so that your team members, your vendors all have a buy-in, that you're not just action. Ultimately, the goal is bigger. Try and get them to stress the purpose. But if you don't have and utilize empathy to let them see that purpose and act with that, it's going to kind of treat you as another number, another partner, or vendor. So it's absolutely in the relationships, and it's critical lining it up with your financial partners, is honoring your word.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. And I think what I see is, like, the supply chain has the longest chain. Like, you have to deal with a lot of customers or a lot of people.
Yes.
And, like, for
Yeah.
example, like, being from coming from the marketing side, I know that I have, like, few clients, I would say. But I think in your profession, supply chain means you have to be in touch with the and all at all level with all the people
Yes.
at different. So I think it is very important to have trust, because at any point in time, if the chain is broken, it's going to affect your result or growth. So I
Yes.
think that's you
Yes.
highlighted very rightly, that you need to build that trust, so everybody does their work in a proper way. Right. So, you also recently published book, right? I think it was last year or the early. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit about your book. I've just read a little bit about it. I'm trying to get still hold of it. So maybe you can talk about it.
Yeah, it'd be a
Yeah.
pleasure. Prompted that was when COVID came out. I didn't know, so I wanted to write it and more so leave a legacy for our children, more specifically, or see how their thought if something ever happened to me. Then when I wrote the article on empathy wins and selling doesn't, I got a lot of back channel speak more on it, and then I realized the book may have had some traction. So I outlining my story, why it was important, and that if I was some form of written thought to show that you can have success, been my experience. That's what led success for me, and it led success for all who we worked with, reciprocated back. So it's the overarching kind of me, but also a call for leaders to take that action and left for our children in case I was no longer here.
Yeah, that's a very important actually topic, and it's a great mission. And you said, like, that you're trying to replace that culture of, especially the corporate culture, with the kindness and compassion. And uh, what obstacle you face when you actually trying to advocate kindness, compassion in the corporate culture? Because, like, we've seen that corporate culture is the culture where people are highly competitive, and these words or these skills are considered as weakness. So how do you practice these skills like compassion and kindness and empathy? Because it's very hard to practice, and it is hard for us to actually tell others to practice it. So how, what obstacle you face?
This one's people assume that it's a weakness because you're either calm or your environment that will cause you to be in an explosive situation. And one of the books I read that kind of left the impact was Extreme Ownership. When I read it, I the corporate offices, and you had people all up until the time some of the examples they couldn't get the people to buy on board, and then you have the two Navy SEALs go in there, and then they respond in what I viewed was empathy. So here you have two soldiers or warriors walking into an environment using the very thing and principle and compassion have. Now, it's not a weakness. Kindness, in my view, is not somebody something in a compassionate way that they may not want to hear. Nice, on the other hand, I view is many people see empathy as being nice when it's really kind and compassion. Tell somebody who you know on the other side is not going to receive it well, but you're delivering. And that book kind of left a real mark saying, hey, I can live like doing it. I also know, like, if you look at David Goggins and you see the way
Yeah.
he's kind of got language people may disagree with, but if you look deep down at the story, he's trying to outside and speak to a certain language and group of people who need that level, getting under their skin to do it. So it's knowing which group of people you need to gonna respond, and for you to be able to do that, that's a wide update. But for the most part, people are gonna see it as weakness because you haven't really deep in communicating.
Yeah, that's very true actually, because most of the time people see it as weakness, like especially kindness, or especially when you're trying to help other people, you are not considered as someone more highly competitive or something. So that is one thing I feel. It's actually it it works in a negative way, like people may
Yep.
take it as competitive, but the thing is that uh, I've seen like the cultures where the kindness is practiced, the productivity also increases, the companies start growing, and because the culture they form. Yet there is still, I feel there is a lot of obstacle and hindrance are there, I think, because people are still accustomed to work in a certain way. So that is one thing
Yeah,
that we need to practice more and advocate more about it.
yeah. There's a link. There's a Cambridge study on there, and when they went in, they had all the sales executives. Now, empathy, you were able to generate more revenue, but your margins weren't as those who had active empathy, which used a logic base behind it. There, because what it did was they took the intellectual reasons behind what they was empathy. in the process and not that showed a complete understanding of the situation, deliver it in compassionate empathy. So you do have to have a fluidity and use it because only using emotional. I feel bad, so I'm worried the cost to put your company in a bad situation or a tough one. Where if you use the cognitive and you're feeling and sensing the need on the other person's side, internal and external, it's how it's delivered is where I feel people make compassion.
Yeah, that's true. And I think the people, it also affects the mental health of the people, especially in working in the
Yes.
company or something.
Yeah.
And that is very, very important these days, because a lot of people are under stress, the depression, and they don't talk about it. And when we actually start uh, reaching out to them or practice such like kindness and compassion, people try to open up, and they think that human as a complete human being, rather than just having treat them in different aspect. Like people don't I don't see that people work as a in different roles, or the roles are very, very different. Because if the person is suffering, or do not have let's say a happy or life and the personal level, it's going to affect at the professional
Yes.
level too, or vice versa. If they're not happy with the professional life, it's going to affect their personal life as well. So these roles are not are like entwined with each other. So it's that's why it is, I think, highly important to actually practice these like kindness and compassion at every level, at workplace, and also at the personal level, at the personal life as well. So
Yes.
I would just also ask here that what do you think that why is still there is so much resistance to that? Because a lot of people already are into that, and there are lots of people are also advocating mental health, kindness, compassion, yet there is a still resistance to it. So what do you think, what are the factors that are not or that what are the obstacle in that to practice kindness and compassion?
That's a great question. And from my experience, and for some, that resistance comes from it also, you have to feeling with a lot of kindness to, but then you have to have a self that do if you're not willing to show it or also a revelation to yourself. So people,
Yeah.
many may feel autism and have to place the work on themselves to be able to show more to others. They be seen as weak. Their team actually gonna enjoy. I, I had a guy that I share in that book who was like deal with it, and someone in his family went through an experience back and forth with him. Finally, he was able to say, "Hey, look, I'm gonna practice this for 90 days, see a change. I will." I had to. It's probably gonna take a little longer than that. Third set, he saw a change in himself, and he saw a change in the team. So it's not an overnight process. The authenticity and that resistance is other people will hold you, yourself will hold yourself accountable. And if someone's not ready to, they're going to resist.
Yeah, that's actually true, because still there is a lot of resistance, and you said that it's gonna take longer time. So what actually do you think actions we need to take to like reduce this resistance? I know that you have been already advocating it, and there are lots of people like me and the other ones who are actually trying to create awareness about it. But what are the you think are the more are the action needed to promote it in a faster and a quicker way?
So I think people like you, those who have large following, things. You've got like Gary, these big names pushing it and supporting to let them see, hey, has brought them success at those levels. Let's make a change for it. When other people, from what I've researched on there, really make an impact. If you have one or two people in it executing it at a leadership role or a management role, they have the ability. Somebody's willing to step to the front and simply do it and show it. But mostly I feel like it has to go inward, and one person can make people think that they're just one person, they won't be able to make that change. If someone on a team will do it and garner that influence that comes with it. But when you have at the top pushing it, you have corporations with larger CEOs, your executive levels, all across, people from different demographics reaching it, it's going to make an impact to see this world needs to change. And the way I view young people right now are stressing the importance of it. They want to align with those things, those social causes. If the monetary reason won't get you to do it, I feel like the next gen are going to demand it. So you can do it the easy way or the difficult way, one way or another. Social change, the right way to do it now before they basically monetary way to have those leaders
Yeah.
step forward.
Yeah, that's true. I think because at the end of the day, it all ends up with the like monetary benefit, and
Yeah.
if it is attached to it, and I think there are lots of studies showing that if any culture practice like empathy, kindness, compassion, it does increase productivity and growth. And the people who are talking more about it, it will take a little time, but I think it is there, and it will change hopefully soon.
But yeah, but see, that's more important, and mental health is important. There's also another side that people don't talk. That's probably there's the empathy burnout where you go, you give so much, you give so much, you don't want to put it's not rewarding, but you don't always see those deposits for the actions that you're down the road. It may be 2 years down the road for somebody that practices it. So immediate return, they if they're not willing to commit to live that way and be that burnout, which it comes good to have mental health partners and people support you and push that kindness matters.
Yeah, actually, this is a very important point that they should also protect themselves from getting burned out, because they can only give to the other
Yes,
to certain
yes.
extent. And if they start giving more and more and they don't get something in return, it's going to lead to burnout. So that's an excellent point, that whoever is like into this, they need to protect themselves from burning out, because it. That is usually said that they need to fill their cup before giving it to the other. So I think that's a brilliant advice. So I know this topic is actually a very vast, and we can talk a lot,
Yeah.
but the show is about to end. So before
Okay.
I end the show, what one advice would you give to our audience today?
So one of my favorite quotes is from the John Biner. You have not lived today something for
Yeah.
someone else that's not able to repay you. So if you approach that mindset, place to start.
Yeah, that's brilliant advice. That's good. So before again, I just the last words, that how our audience can reach out to you. What is the best way to reach out to you
And LinkedIn's
if they
been
want
real
to?
helpful.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn's
Okay.
been real helpful. Yeah, that's
Okay.
probably the
Yeah, that's the
easiest way to get.
That's great, and that's his LinkedIn account, and you can just check them. And I think you have you have like two websites also, right? The your company website and this your personal website. So I
Yeah.
think they can also reach out to you through this to find out more.
Yes.
So yeah, now a
And
time is
there
almost over. Yeah,
for them. Okay.
sorry, and there's what?
Put the guide there. It's kind of geared towards supply chain, but most people can apply it there. If you come in here, they can get a free one. It's basically I use to build a foundation.
Okay, so so whoever wants to get some Paul said, please reach out to him through LinkedIn or through his website, and he would be happy to help you out on that. So whoever joined today from our show from across the globe, thank you so much for joining, and most importantly, thank you, Paul, for joining us today.
Yeah.
And it was a wonderful discussion. I'm sure our audience got so much information and experience and insights from you. So thank you so much for joining us today.
All right. Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.